The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, you know, when I was at the Beeb, I had what was called, I think, my Bob Dylan moment. I think we've talked about it, haven't we? When I announced him as, well, as past, and he wasn't. Honestly,
Bob Dylan, R.I.P.
I know. Well, I didn't.
Still alive.
No, well, I didn't announce that he'd died. I just said, something about a song. And I said, wouldn't it be lovely if he was still with us? But anyway, moving on from that, because that is quite a few decades ago now. I had another one last week, but on this show, when I announced that people like Bob Carlos Clark and
I know what you're going to say,
and Don McCullin didn't print, and of course they print.
Yeah.
Of course they print. And I got pulled up, didn't I, by John St. John Smith?
Quite right.
Well, I don't. Why didn't you correct me at the time? Because you knew this as well.
Well, because you were going off on some weird tangent about, this other printer and stuff. And
Robin Bell, yeah. I love Robin Bell's printing work, you see. And so I was sort of stuck on the Robin Bell thing. And, of course, I got that entirely wrong. So,
but in your defence, the photographers we were talking about didn't print all of their stuff. Most of them, well, some of them did it more towards the latter stages of their career and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of their commercial stuff and everything went off. But, I mean, you were wrong, but I think with caveats.
Yeah. Well, I didn't edit it out of the show last week, and I thought we'd just make it our little piece before the theme tune here.
The FujiCast.
And then it's all back to normal, and I shall no doubt make another gaffe very, very soon. How are you, Kev?
Yeah, I'm all right. Existing.
Oh, Kev. Well, welcome
Do you know what I did last night?
Oh, no, go on.
My foot was getting a bit better. I was thinking to myself, you know what? I fancy I might be able to get out for a run on the weekend if I behave myself.
Yeah.
And then I was having a shower last night, and I thought, I need to put the macaroni cheese in the oven to finish it off because Rosa and Gemma will be back from the stables soon and it won't be ready. So I put my dressing gown on. I went down the stairs. Halfway down the stairs, or towards the top of the stairs, I thought to myself, I better wipe these stairs because one of the kids is going to fall down on the water.
Right.
Because we've got wooden stairs.
Yeah.
And as I thought it, I went down the stairs like a 4-year-old would fall down the stairs.
No.
I went flying. Hurt my elbow, hurt my arm, re-hurt my foot. Albie came out of his cave. You all right, Dad? Yeah, I'm all right, son. All right.
Did you hurt your coccyx?
Oh, no, my coccyx is about the only thing that doesn't hurt.
Okay. Well, at least there's action in the Mullins household tonight, then. I was never very good at biology before John St. John Smith corrects me on that one. Welcome to the FujiCast and a sort of injured Kev, then. Yeah, if you're not a Fujifilm shooter, it makes no odds. You're still warmly welcome here. You're probably wondering what the devil is going on. Thank you to our friends in the Patreon group, and of course we're going to do some bump to the fronts in a moment's time. Send your questions in. It's a show all about questions, isn't it, Kev? Send them to click@fujicast.co.uk. And today on the interview we've got... Oh, you've been having a lot of fun of late. You've been doing the interviews.
I've been doing some interviews.
I know, Jenny McCord. What was Jenny like?
Jenny's lovely. Yeah, I mean, I've known her for a while, but yeah, she's got the perhaps most perfect job. We'll leave it to the interview.
The perfect job.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Well, one of the as a photographer, probably one of the things that a lot of people will be very envious of.
All right. Okay. Well, say no more. We'll wait for the interview then, shall we?
Yeah.
Right, a reminder of the email address before we start. Click at fujicast.co.uk for any questions about photography. That's what this show's all about. Last few weeks we've dealt with everything from street shooter lenses, I have a feeling we will be again, to contracts, to how business is, anything at all. Click at fujicast.co.uk. And before our very first question of the week, a word from our friends at Sprout Studio.
Sprout Studio is an all-in-one studio management suite built for photographers by photographers. You get your CRM, galleries, email marketing, scheduling, and bookkeeping all in one place. My name is Brian Caparici, and I'm a Fuji photographer, having photographed weddings and portraits for 15 years now. I'm also the CEO and founder here at Sprout Studio. This Black Friday, not only can you save, but we've gathered everything you need to redo 2020 and start next year on the right foot. Visit sproutredo.com/podcast to learn more today.
Right, should we delve straight? I'm sorry about your fall down the stairs. You are okay though, aren't you? now?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm okay. I can't. You know that thing sometimes where you can't lift your arm very high.
Lazy? Do you mean lazy?
Laziness in my left arm. Yeah, I've got laziness in my left arm. I've got terrible things in my right foot.
Jeez, you're falling apart.
But the good thing is there's like 5 games of rugby on the telly this weekend. So I'm just
hang on a minute. Now it all makes sense. There's nothing wrong with you at all. There's nothing wrong with you at all. You've engineered this so that you can just sit there with with your beers over the weekend. I bet you threw something like some sort of kettlebell down the stairs so Albie came out. So there's your cover. And you've just signed yourself off for the weekend to watch rugby.
I've got my projector ready. It's going to be. I'm going to have it 8 feet wide on the living room wall.
I know exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
It's see-through, and I'm phoning Gemma. I'm not having any of it.
Oh, Gemma knows. I told her. I'm going to treat her to some fizzy wine and 8 feet wide rugby tonight.
She'll be delighted. That's it. Questions. We've got some bump to the fronts first. Eric Joseph, hi Neil, hi Kev. Wondering if you could recommend this is definitely up your street, Kev. If you could recommend a book or other resource to learn more about photojournalism or documentary photography. I realise there are likely videos out there on YouTube land, YouTubeobia, but I'm looking for something deeper as I'm thinking of creating a project combining photojournalism and the study of personality for my personality psych class. Wow.
Blimey, they do classes in all sorts these days,
don't they?
Yes, well, actually, funny enough, I have a book right in front of me that I'm holding in my good hand, and it's called Understanding Photojournalism.
Oh, is that today's book by any chance?
No, it's not.
Oh.
But while I was scuppering around this morning looking for a book to bring in, I thought I'll bring that because I do remember seeing something come through in a question. So, Understanding Photojournalism, it's by 2 people, Jennifer McCord and Paul Lowe, Lowe. It's a book I've had for a long, long time. It's a textbook. Okay, so it covers things like ethics, and it will kind of cover power and representation. So it's about the study of photojournalism rather than the taking of the pictures. So, for example, I'm just looking at a chapter here which is titled "The Single Image and the Photo Story." Okay, so it's really good. It's easily available. I checked, Bloomsbury print, paperback, kind of A5 size. Stick it in your man bag. There you go. So it's published by Bloomsbury. It's by Jennifer McCord and Paul Lowe, Understanding Photojournalism, and it's nice.
So it talks about the ethics and the laws and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So it's not how to take pictures. It's more about how to be a photojournalist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that was a good answer, wasn't it?
Very good. The other 2 that bumps to the 10 points for that. Bump to the fronts. Are really just comments, but I'll read them anyway. Tim Helps, having you guys entertain me while in the car for 150 episodes. The least I can do is donate some dollars, at least for a while. One big success I think you have with the cast is steering clear of politics. Right, I wanted to talk to you about Donald Trump. Do you want to talk about Donald Trump? Is he worth talking about?
Don't be rude.
Oh, don't you start.
You're going to have to get a new one for Biden.
I was looking for one the other day. I will get one. And the other one was from Lev Pertsov, who loves the podcast as well. People give me strange looks, says Lev, when I burst out laughing while walking my dog in the morning. It's all your fault. Keep them coming. I'm sorry about that.
That's very kind.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know what Bump to the Front is, they're the people that have kindly supported us on Patreon, patreon.com/FujiCast. And we kind of upgrade your questions, so to speak.
It's like getting onto an aircraft and turning left, which I've rarely done. I've only done it once in my life or something. But Kev, whenever he gets on one, he doesn't even know what a right turn is anymore.
We've been watching. Albie's really into flight sim at the moment, and we've been watching all of the EasyJet film TV shows, and it's all about the pilot training and everything. It's really interesting. A lot of those 18-year-old pilots don't know how to fly aeroplanes. I'm just going to say that.
What? Well, you shouldn't say that about EasyJet. They obviously go through the training process. Just be careful, Kev.
The program is about their training process.
Oh, is it?
These people look about 15 years old.
Well, I know, but you kind of. Yeah, I know. It does feel a bit weird. I got onto another popular airline not so long ago, and the captain came out, and I thought, blimey, look at you. Who gave you that costume to dress up in?
I know. Excuse me, Mr. Driver. Do I have to tuck my shirt in before I start putting the gears down? What's this big handle here for? Does that go up or down?
I was watching. For some reason, my algorithm that's churning out stuff for me to watch on YouTube, and it's because the kids use my account in the house. I know exactly what they've been watching, what kind of stuff they've been watching, because that's the stuff that's served up to me when I go youtube.com return. And at the moment, I've got lots of stuff on aircraft, and most of it is disaster sort of stuff. But it's light disaster, not the heavy disaster. So, for example, I saw a tug the other day. You know the tugs that they use to pull the aircraft out and push them and pitch them around them? This guy was a bit overzealous, and he connected with the front wheel, obviously, and pulled it into position. And then obviously he'd forgotten to properly disconnect it or something. And he got back in the tug, and he went to go whizzing off the other way, and he pulled the front wheel out, and the whole nose went on the floor. and the tug stopped, and they all got out, and they looked like they were scratching their head a bit. And I was thinking, how on earth can you say, "Oh, I just scratched your car," sort of thing? Because it's not that. You can't sort of say, "Oh, I don't know, it wasn't like that when I left it."
Yeah, it's 60 million aeroplane. There was a bit on this EasyJet thing where they had the pilots had landed and they needed to go and park, and they'd missed the ground crew guy clearly said over the radio, "Turn left," and she turned right into the wrong hole on the runway, which caused all kinds of problems. And so the air traffic controller came on, and he was like, "Excuse me, madam, what are you doing?" And she said she basically blamed blamed ground control. Said ground control told me to turn right, and the air traffic guy said, "Ground control, no shit." Turn left.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the captains arguing with air traffic ATC with air traffic control on the way down? That's a really interesting. Look that YouTube those YouTube films up. The arguments they have while they're up there arguing with air traffic control is quite funny. Anyway, where were we? Is it
something to do with cameras? Is it today?
Yeah. Is it your question? Go for it.
It is my question. So we're going to go to the Facebook group for the question. You can post your questions on Facebook. Remember, there's a thread at the top if you are a member of the group. And this is from Stu Weir, and he says, "Hi Kevin and Neil, big fan of the show, yada 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 yada. Question for you, Kev. You can go home, Neil, if you want. Do you know if the upcoming 18mm f1.4 WR, which is the newly announced but not yet available 18mm, is a result of video needs, or because many Fujifilm X-photographers have been requesting such a lens?"
I wouldn't have thought it was for video needs, would you? I mean, generally you don't release prime videos for prime lenses in that range as a video lens, do you? Really?
No, I don't. I mean, you're more adequate to answer the video kind of thing. 18mm. What's that in full frame equivalent? 20
in the late 20s, isn't it? 27,
something
28,
like that, 28,
like that.
27 and a half or something.
Yeah.
I do remember being in a product meeting in Dubai a while back, years ago, and they were like, which lenses should we make next? And a lot of us did put our hands up and say, 18mm. We want a new 18mm. And they subsequently ignored us. So, but in the end, they got there.
Here it is, yeah.
So maybe it is peer pressure from the ex-photographers, but I suspect it's more to do with sales. You know, they say with all camera manufacturers that camera manufacturers don't make money on bodies; they make money on lenses, I think. Yeah. And so I suspect it's to do with sales. I think that lens will fly. Yeah. As long as it's small enough. I mean, it won't be huge. I would imagine it'll be similar in kind of size and weight to the f2 lenses, really, like the 35-23. I'm hoping in build. I'm hoping it won't be like the 23mm f1.4, which is quite big and wide. Sensor, the lens technology's moved on, I suppose, and the weight of the body, the weight of the lens body can be less. Because obviously the current one is a pancake lens, and it's practically a pancake lens.
It is titchy, isn't it?
Much smaller.
Wasn't that? That was the favourite lens of. Who was using that? We went to Brighton with Patrick Larotte, didn't we?
Facundo,
of course. Sorry, Facundo, you were there as well. Oh dear. They both love that lens. I think they were both using that for that salty, weren't they?
Yeah, Facundo definitely uses it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you're wondering why, because you sound a little bit different this week. Last week you were in your front room But have you got fed up with the dog attacking you and stuff? Because now
I'm in the studio today.
You've put yourself in the studio, which sounds a little bit like your bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, I should have thrown the blanket. I would have thrown the blanket over me if I had two hands to use. I'm in the studio today.
Right, question. Steve Weller has written in. Stephen Weller. Hi, now this is a morbid question, so stand by, Kev.
Warning.
A bit of a morbid question, but one I found myself after waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning asking. Not sure why, but I started thinking about what would happen to my weddings if I was to pass on. Now, I know if we couldn't photograph a wedding for illness or another situation, we can rely on the back of our fellow photographers to step in. We'd call them directly or put a shout out online. But what would happen if you suddenly passed away? Is there somebody in your family or an associate who has access to all your upcoming wedding details and couples' contact details? In my situation, I use a CRM to store all the wedding info and couple details, so that means I have to log in using my username, password, blah, 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 blah. But if I'm not around, how could anybody access this info? And how would a family member know where to even start contacting the couples to give them the bad news? Do you have a process for this extreme situation? If not, what would you do if that situation occurred? Told you it was a morbid question. Love, Steve.
Well, I don't care, frankly. If I'm dead, I'm dead. That's it.
Kev, but you know, myself and Gemma, we're going to have to deal with the fallout of this. Because I know she's going to call me.
Yeah.
Well, after she's called the plumber, obviously, that nice lad that comes round.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I honestly, that is not something that's ever passed my mind. I would say that we're all in the same kind of situation in that, you know, Apple passwords, I don't have any of them, but like Google passwords and OneDrive and Dropbox and various other things. I do actually store all of my passwords in a secure online password app. Yeah. And of which Gemma does know the log on to that. So I suppose that does answer the question. Yeah. But yeah, it's not something I don't know. You know, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and thinking about that that's too much cheese before bed.
And wine.
Way too much cheese.
If you're a limited company and with directors and due diligence and things like that, you should really have a company Bible. I always thought anyway. I was in charge of the company Bible when I was involved in it was a PLC, and that was one of my tasks was to make sure that the company Bible was up to date with what would happen if scenarios. So I do actually have a what would happen if scenario and a folder with those instructions in it. That's very morbid, isn't it?
In your company Bible, was there a section that said who would update the company Bible should Neil pop off this mortal coil?
No, that's the only question it doesn't really answer.
See, well, there you go. Yeah, be stuck, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it's like an ever-decreasing circle. What happens next?
I don't know. Well, I know I'm giving you all my equipment, Kev.
I might get some of mine back then.
You might get that. What's the one I've got? Is it 35 mil?
35.
Let me have a quick look. 35, just in case things have changed in here. Because I did have a clear out the other day, and I was looking for a flash. No, I don't have it.
Still not there. No. Well, if I go first, you can have my overdraft and my bounce back loan.
Oh, thanks very much.
There we go.
Oh. Can I have Git?
And all my equipment.
Can I have Git? Oh no, the General will want Git, and the kids will want Git.
I've heard you say it now. I'm going to put him in the post this afternoon. That's it. I'll even do a special delivery.
You can have him regardless whether I'm alive or dead. You're having Git. It's a good question though, Steve, and I know we're sort of gallows humour around it a little bit, but it's worth thinking about a company Bible. Very, very basic, very simple one. The what happens if scenario. Just with your passwords, obviously, and just like a flow chart of things to do. And I don't believe, unless your organisation's really large, I don't believe it needs to be too complicated at all. So, yeah.
I would just put everything in a password app and give your wife a password,
that's right.
Or your husband, or your kids, or whatever.
Right, your question. Away from the morbidity.
Yeah, blimey. Moving on. Okay, so this one is from Hubert Cole from Menominee in Wisconsin.
From where?
Menominee. Menominee.
Cue the song. Sounds great. That sounds like one of those Australian names, doesn't it? You know, they have these weird names in Australia. They do in America as well, don't they, actually?
Yeah, it's in Wisconsin. It's still counting in Wisconsin. I think they are. Have you ever done any work for any of the royal family or any of the royals, it says? If yes, funny, weird experiences you wish to share.
You have?
I didn't do work for the royal family, but there were royal family members there. Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes. So I photographed, I'm not really sure how much I should go into this. Let's just say I photographed the wedding I photographed the brother.
I tell you what, I can bleep it out. So just say it and I'll bleep it out. And that'd be great because people will be thinking, who is he saying?
Okay. I photographed his brother's wedding.
No way.
Yeah. And however, I didn't know. They didn't tell me this. And halfway, just before the speeches, I sent a message to Gemma. I took a picture on my phone and I texted her. I said, I really recognize this. Do you know who he is? And she said, yeah, that's. And there was a little incident with his daughter, who is.
Don't give me too much to bleep out. I might forget one of them.
What's her name? Well, we should probably leave it. This is getting a little bit out of my comfort zone.
So what did you I think the question is, how did you approach it? And were you, after you found out that it was how did you approach it? Did you sort of think, I won't look like I'm interested in taking photographs now because it might seem like I'm a bit keen or something?
No. I actually thought, oh my God, I better get a few more pictures of.
Oh right, you went the other way, right?
But then I looked at I took a photo of the place setting, the dinner, the name list of all the names.
Yeah. You never do that. You never do that usually.
No. Well, I didn't take it for them. I took it for so I posted it and I sent it to Jebba.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh yeah, he was on that film. This is an MP. Blah 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 blah."
Blimey.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, I bet best." There I was in my best scruffy photographer outfit, no tie,
Columbo, right?
2 different shoes, that kind of thing. And I was like, "Oh dear." But yeah, there was a substantial moment during that day that was a bit of a. Well, I think it's very funny. I'm not sure she did.
You probably can't say though, can you?
No.
It's one for the.
They love their pictures though.
One for the
and
pub.
They're very, 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 very nice.
Yeah.
Everybody there was very nice.
How would you approach? I know I speak to quite a few photographers within the Photography Daily Show now that have had experience of photographing the royal family and have done portraits. And I'm always fascinated to know how they approach it. And they're always a bit sort of shoulder shruggery, kind of like, well, just the same as anybody else, really. I don't really change it. And, there's a few more protocols to observe. But apart from that, don't really approach it in any different fashion. Yeah,
I'd like to think I'd be the same. I'm not one for starstruckism and all that kind of stuff. Of course, certain things you have, if they say you've got 3 minutes to do it and you must not talk to them, then so be it. But I wouldn't, I don't really go for that kind of people are different. Everybody's the same in my mind.
Right. Okay.
Regardless what hat you wear.
Keep your hat on. One from Peter Foot. Hi Neil. Hi Kev. Thanks for the great show. Very entertaining and informative. A question for you both. With the ever increasing specs of smartphones and the latest release of the new iPhone 12, bigger sensor, wider aperture, 10-bit HDR video, on the basis of printing ever-increasing sizes of images from an iPhone 12 Pro Max and a typical camera from the Fuji range, at what point of print would a discernible difference be noticed in image quality? Ditto video. My question is based upon everyday snapshots, really. So this is not really based upon using this professionally. Although we did earlier on this year, or was it the end of last year? I can't remember now. Talk about somebody using a smartphone at a wedding, didn't we? And
back in the normal world.
Yeah, back in normal days.
Yes, we did. I don't know. There's a lot of this going on at the minute, isn't it? The new iPhone is brilliant, and I've seen some amazing stuff from it. You've got the new AI technology that seems to be coming through from Adobe and who's the other one? Topaz Labs and various places like that. And there are many people, many very big YouTube channels that only ever use their phone to film their content. A lot of the YouTubers, the vloggers, just use their phones.
Is that right? They've stopped using their cameras.
You can film in 4K on a phone and it will look
well, I know you can,
good.
but I didn't realise people were... I'd always thought it was... there's always something about the skin that's not quite right on a video.
Because it's generally processed in the camera, isn't it?
You can't do much much with it.
Yeah, I mean, print-wise, don't know. I mean, I remember printing something from one of my iPhones that I had. This would have been like an iPhone 4 or 5 years and years ago, and I printed it maybe A4. What's the one up from A4? It's just bigger than A4.
A3. A3.
Is there an A3? Okay, A3.
43 to 2 to 1.
Yeah, and that looked fine. So that was a long time ago, and I'm sure you can print reasonably well from them if you so wish. For me, there's no fun, there's no enjoyment, there's no the creativity of it is not in it for me. I do take a lot of pictures on my phone, but mostly they are, family snaps, memories, screenshots, grabs, pictures of the Wi-Fi code on the back of the Wi-Fi router because it's downstairs and I need it upstairs, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Be honest with me, have you ever used your smartphone, whether it's iPhone or Android, in any way, shape or form for some professional work?
Yes.
What?
So the very last wedding I shot, which was in October, COVID wedding for a friend of mine, it was at the Four Seasons in Doggersfield, yeah. Doggersfield, wherever.
Doggersfield is probably something very, very, very different.
Anyway,
have you been to Doggersfield?
You'll know that place.
Not since last Sunday.
And there's a very long road that leads up to it. A beautiful place.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I wanted to get a wide shot of the hotel from a distance.
Oh, right.
And so I'm not proud of it. It was private road. I carried on driving and took a picture of it when my left hand was good and working in those days, with my my Huawei, and just took a snap, and that made the album.
Ah. Yeah. And when you processed it, were you able to make it or meld it with everything else?
Yeah, it looked slightly different, I have to say, the edit of it, but yeah, no, it was fine. And because it's so far away, this view, I was thinking, well, I've got two choices. I can walk all the way back here and get my camera out and do it all properly. It'll be dark when I leave, so I won't be able to do it then, or I can just flip my phone out and take a shot now, which is what I did. Right. But that's the only time.
A lot of news footage these days comes via iPhones and smartphones of every flavour. What was it? Was it 50%? One news agency I was talking to recently, the chief exec of it said, about 50% of the stuff we have agency-wise now going out is user generated content, is what they call it, isn't it? And generally that comes off a phone. Yeah.
It's what they call citizen journalism, isn't it? It's why you always see at the bottom of every single BBC article is, were you here? Please send us your pictures. And then there's like read these terms and conditions. We can do what we want with these pictures. We can sell them. We can make money at them. We can stick them on a back of a bottle of milk, and you can't get anything.
Well, I think they do get money, but not much. I don't
think so. Not for the citizen journalism stuff. If you submit something for something specific, but not the other stuff. But anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the phones are capable. I can't answer the question about prints, to be totally honest with you. I wouldn't want to print professional stuff from it, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing snapshots of the family. I certainly think an A4 coming out of a 12 Pro Max, or what I've seen and heard, and the videos that I've watched about it. I have an 8 Plus at the moment. I missed a generation there. I didn't go for the 10. Was there an 11? I can't even remember now. But I've kept hold of my 8 Plus, which I love, because of the audio quality for the recordings I make for audio, which is perfectly good enough. The interesting thing about audio on the phones is there's a lot of journalists from some very large broadcasting corporations that are very happy to use their iPhones with a wind sock on them, or a dead cat, as they call them, so that and they use them for interviewing. Very, very
well,
good.
you know what? I'm sick to death of my phone now, I have to say. Just smartphones, and actually my contract is up very soon, and they're already kind of get a new iPhone 12. It's you just have to pay £75 a month for the next 4 years, and I'm like, nope. I am going to, when my contract's up, I'm going to go to Voxy, which is £10 a month. Similar to giffgaff, but on the Vodafone network. I'm going to give my phone to probably Rosa, and I'm going to get one of those old phones that doesn't have any of the shenanigans on it. Just a phone that makes phone calls and does texts.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. Well, you're becoming a proper minimalist, aren't you?
I'm bailing out of it.
Yeah. I can see a minimalist Kev Mullins channel coming. I have retired from the world. I'm living as a hermit.
I'll probably only last about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
but,
and you'll get a 12. Yeah, that 12. How much do you want?
I was thinking about it, and the only thing I'll miss, honestly, and I'm serious about this, I think the only thing I'll miss is my chess game.
Oh yeah, you do like playing that, don't you?
Yeah, my online chess. I like that.
I would miss Candy Crush tremendously. No, I'm honest. I'm on level 300 and something now, nearly 400.
Anyway, come on, we're going to leave.
Right, come on, let's go for the interview. This is Jenny. Can you tell us anything more about Jenny McCord before we play it?
Well, yeah. So Jenny, you'll hear it in the interview, of course. But Jenny is a music photographer. But she travels the world with. If you look on her Instagram, she's got like behind the scenes pictures of Ellie Goulding and Westlife concerts and stuff like that. She goes to all the festivals, and she's a kind of fly on the wall documentary style photographer for bands, but beyond that she makes beautiful portraits, shoots film, and she's just a jolly nice person. I met her a few times at the Snap Festival, Laura Babb's festival, and I remember thinking at the time, I did that terrible thing back in the day when you meet somebody and you don't know who they are or what they do, and just kind of assumed that she was one of the attendees rather than one of the speakers.
Oh no!
And I'm trying to think back now, but I'm not even sure whether she was speaking or not. But anyway, I didn't. It was months later where I saw some of her pictures come up on Facebook, and I was like, oh God, these are incredible! Absolutely incredible.
She didn't tell you then?
Well, no, I can't. The Snap Festival is 5 days in a forest with cameras and alcohol and chatting. So it was quite a bit of a blur. Great festival, Snap Festival. If Laura ever does it again. But so I didn't know, and it was like 5 years ago. So, but anyway, I did finally reach out to her, and we got the interview. How are you at the moment? Where are you physically? London still, or?
Yeah, so I'm in East London, and been here since the start of lockdown. But yeah, it's all right. It's been odd experiencing coronavirus sort of in a city, but good as well. It's been nice getting to explore my area a bit more and spend more time at home and things.
So for those of you that don't know Jenny, she is a wonderful music photographer, like I said, and I think probably the dream job, the job that many of us would have dreamt of all our lives, getting to go on tour with bands and festivals and all that kind of stuff. Now, Jenny, there can't be many people that have a job like that, I don't think. How has this happened? How have you ended up being a music photographer that travels around the world?
I don't know. No, it all started when I was 18, and I basically decided that I was going to be a music photographer. I had really no right deciding that, but I had it decided in my head. And this band that I was into followed me on Twitter, and I remember seeing that they were coming over to the UK for the first time. They were an American band, and I just DM'd them and was like, "Hi, do you fancy having a tour photographer? Here's my Flickr account with photos of my family." And they were like, "Yeah, come on tour." So I skipped a week of school. And went on tour for 2 weeks, and it was very, very grimy, a lot of sleeping on people's floors. I actually got pneumonia in the last couple of days. It was, pretty gritty, but it was also the best thing at the time that I thought had ever happened to me, and I finally felt like I'd found the thing I was supposed to be doing and the people I was supposed to be with. And so I was very lucky that I was able to stay at home, and I just went to gigs 4 or 5 times a week, these small local gigs, and just shot bands, and then would email them after and be like, "Here's the photos I took, I'd love to take portraits of you," and was just basically harassing people all the time to let me take their photo, until eventually someone started paying me for it. So
it's about as rock and roll introductory story as you can get as well, isn't it, really? I just emailed them and they said, "Yeah, cool, come along." Your website, now I have to admit that I've follow you on Instagram and I look at all your lovely work on Instagram, and until I kind of thought about calling you up and interviewing you, I hadn't really looked at your website. And your website is probably one of the simplest websites I've seen, but also one of the most powerful websites I've seen. I love it. 2 words, portfolio and contact. loads of lovely pictures, and and a little tiny bit about you, which I think is brilliant. And for me, I think that very first picture that comes up, the black and white one of the three women, I think they're laughing, giggling away.
Yeah.
Now, you wrote something on Instagram about that picture, and kind of piqued my attention a little bit, because I think it's this world we live in. I don't want to kind of separate men from women or anything, but I would imagine it's quite a hard world for you in terms of doing the job that you do. Do you find that? Am I totally misreading it? Is it a challenge?
No, it's no, you're right. It is. I mean, the music industry is famously a very, very sexist industry, and I get it less so nowadays because I mean, it's less me chasing people that I want to work with and more people coming to me. But definitely back in the day, I would have bands who were like, yeah, we want you to come shoot our shows, but we don't want to take you on tour because we don't like having girls on tour. Mm-hmm. Or, I definitely had all of the experiences of people who were creepy in bands, or security guards not taking me seriously. I mean, that still happens. On the Westlife tour, I remember there was one venue, maybe in Newcastle, where they just couldn't wrap their heads around that they had a female photographer. And every time that I would try to go from the sound desk back to the photo pit at the front of the stage, because I move around the venue a lot when I shoot, they just would make me wait, and then the head of security would have to come and then radio me back in. And I was like, you've seen me walking around all day. I have the AAA pass. You're letting any man that walks past you with a AAA pass come in left, right, and centre. No one else is having this issue. Yeah. So clearly it's the fact that I'm a young woman, and you can't fathom that I'm here as anything serious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully that, like you said, it does seem to be changing, but it's, I mean, the reason why I brought that up was because the music industry is typically renowned for that kind of behavior, I guess. So, I think it's amazing that you're doing what you're doing. And you alluded to this just then, actually, this idea of I travel around the venue a lot at each gig. And that's one of the things that I love about your pictures. You kind of got pictures on the stage behind the band, then you're down in the pit. And then there's pictures from right at the back of the auditorium, these beautiful wide pictures. And it must be amazing. It must just be such a buzz to do that. Do you still get the buzz when you're doing it?
Yeah, totally. Especially if it's someone I'm touring with. Because you get to know these people, and so you have this sort of odd emotional attachment to the people on stage as well as the music. So it's sort of basically it becomes almost larger than life. Somehow it becomes so much more meaningful. So yeah, the adrenaline and the excitement and the joy of all of it is pretty overwhelming, especially when I have artists who I work with over a long period of time. There's a band called Half Moon Run who we have worked together for probably coming up 5 years now. I started working with them early on in my career, and we've done several tours, both in the UK and vast, far-flung places abroad as well. And I never get bored of seeing them play. I must have seen them play well over 100 times now, and they're just, every time I get goosebumps.
What happens on the day? So let's just say you're going on tour with Ellie Goulding or Westlife or some other big name like that. The morning, you wake up in the morning, you pack your bags and you get your cameras, and what happens? You just meet them by the bus, or what's the logistics of going on tour with a band?
Yeah, so normally with when there's slightly bigger productions, there'll be a few days before tour in either in a venue or a sound space, where people will practice the actual production and the lighting, and it'll be a run through. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time I'll go down and shoot that as well, and we sort of will stay in a hotel nearby, or actually my parents sort of seem to live near a lot of those sort of studios, so I end up staying there if I'm working one of those. And then at some point the tour bus shows up and we all load our stuff onto it and call dibs on bunks, and away we go.
Wow. And what's the longest period of time you've been away?
I think consistently it was maybe like 2.5 months. Yeah, I normally like manage to come home in between things. And I think a lot of artists nowadays like don't want to do, like a 6-month tour with no sleep. It's just not as big a thing anymore. I think mental health and physical health is becoming a lot more important in the music industry, which is really needed. And I think there's more call for people for artists to say they want to stay in places for a bit, and just rest and, sort of reset a little bit between tours so that they can really be the best they can be on stage.
I was looking through your Instagram again yesterday, and I came across this picture of, I think it was Ellie Goulding at the Peter Crouch show. Was that right? Is that what I saw?
Yeah.
Peter Crouch show. No, there's a combination I never thought I'd see. Ellie Goulding on the Peter Crouch show. But what interested me about the picture was that you shot it on film. It was a lovely, lovely picture. So how much do you shoot film these days? And you can see it's a passion of yours. And, is there a place for film in your commercial work as well?
Yeah, I've been shooting film for all my personal stuff for quite a while. And I am trying to introduce it more into my commercial stuff. I actually, last week or week before, I did 2 artist press shoots, and I shot the majority of them on film, which is the first time I've done that. I've always been a bit too nervy, and I did that thing where I shot largely on digital and shot a few frames on film, and I was like, I always prefer the film frames, and just wish I sort of had the balls to just shoot it all on film and be like, fuck it, and then have a few digitals to be the backup. So that's what we did this time around, and the photos are beautiful. I love shooting on film. For me, it's I know everyone's always like, oh, it makes me slow down. It makes me consider my work more. And it does all of that. But for me, it's also, there's something more tangible about film, and it's so beautiful, and it just seems to render everything so much better. I'll often, when I shoot digital and film side by side, I'll use the film as a color reference. And then edit to the film. I'll retouch color grade the film a little bit, but then I'll use it as my main reference to do the digital work. So I'm trying to bring it in more. It's not as easy with touring stuff, and not always as easy on commercial stuff either, because a lot of it has a very tight turnaround. So touring, the photos have to be delivered by the next morning. So that's not really possible. Unless you are a very quick darkroom worker in a venue bathroom. But honestly, I'm usually a bit too tired to do that, and it's all a bit fiddly, and it's just, I don't know, just not something that I've been able to manage doing.
And are you processing your own film?
I am not. I tried, but my bathroom is really warm. And it makes me feel very, very sick after 20 minutes of being in there. So it's just not working for me right now. And I have the very wonderful Labyrinth Film Lab, who are a 30-minute bike ride away. So I just go and deliver it to them, and they do their magical, wondrous things and send it all back to me.
Has there ever been a day when you've woken up and thought, I really do not want to go and do this job today, specifically with the music stuff? Or does that never happen?
No, totally. That totally happens. I mean, it is it's an amazing job, and I'm very grateful to have it. But it is still a job some days. And also the thing with music, and especially touring and things like that, is it's all fine and good if you have a long relationship with an artist. But when you're meeting someone for the first time, you are not only meeting the artist, you are meeting their entire crew. So you often, I've had so many times where I've gotten onto a bus of 30 people and been I don't know anyone. And you all have formed as a unit and this touring family, and I have to somehow now integrate myself into it. It's almost like being in high school again and trying to play along with the cool kids and be friends and try and fit your way into it. So you have to be sort of outgoing, you have to be trying to figure out who everyone is and what role they play, and you have to be it's a real test of your like emotional intelligence to some degree, because you're trying to figure out all the relationships and all the hierarchies and stuff that are going on. And some days I'm just like, I'm very tired. I don't want to do that. That's a lot. It's taking a lot out of me to walk onto a set and introduce myself to a bunch of people. Yeah, I did straight after we came out of lockdown, I did a live stream with an artist at the Natural History Museum, which was amazing. But I hadn't like been around people properly, like apart from my flatmates for 4 months or whatever it was that we were in lockdown. And suddenly I walked onto the set that literally had about 100 people on it, and I was like, this is a lot. And it was amazing, but I'd never worked with anyone in that room before. I'd never met any of them, hadn't worked with the artists before. So it was incredibly overwhelming for someone that's, not really spoken to anyone apart from their 2 flatmates for 4 months. So, you have days like that where it's just a lot. And I have days on tour where, things go wrong, or I feel really tired or feel really ill. And you just sort of want the show to be over. But the moment it starts, like, it's always great.
Do you class yourself as a music photographer? Would that be on your business card if you had one?
No, interestingly, I'm sort of changing it because I want to diversify a bit. So I have 2 chronic illnesses. And realistically will not be able to tour forever, and nor do I want to tour forever. So I am, the buzzword at the moment, pivoting. And I've always wanted to go into more sort of commercial things. Like, my dream was always to shoot like a Nike women's campaign. I still want to shoot stuff that feels incredibly emotive, and I would still love to work with artists, but I'm definitely moving away from it. And I had a very good meeting with a woman who's a sort of photography mentor and guidance person. And she was talking to me about my portfolio and having me explain it back to her. And she was like, you sell yourself as a music photographer, but you're actually a people photographer. What interests you is people and the intimacy and like the vulnerability of humans. And she's totally right. Like, that is absolutely what I'm interested in and what drives me. It just happens to be that a lot of that falls in the artist category. Like, artists are so emotive and there's a lot to like dig in there. So that's sort of where I've always been attracted to. But yeah, I'm sort of working on, it's funny you talked about my website as well, because that's going to change. But yeah, I'm sort of working more on I am a portrait photographer, I guess, at the core of it. But I happen to work in the music industry. So
yeah, I purposely asked that question because, when I look at your work, whilst perhaps music is what pays the bills, it's definitely, there's more emotion in the other not more in those other pictures, but there's other pictures that also have that same emotion, I should say. And like you say, the kind of study of people and everything, and it's beautiful. It just really is beautiful. And I was talking to Neil the other day about your Instagram, and we were both kind of scrolling up and down going, wow, look at that, it's amazing. Right, we're coming to the end. I'm going to ask you 2 very quick fire questions.
Oh man, okay.
It's not too dramatic, don't worry. If you could only have one camera in the whole world for the rest of your life, what would it be? Can
I pick one digital and one film?
No, it has to be one.
Oh.
Them's the rules. Doesn't matter what brand or anything.
I would pick the Nikon D810.
D810. Okay, cool. Is that the one you do most of your work with? Your kind of fast work, I should say.
Yeah, it's just really, I have like a weird emotional attachment to it. Even though I've technically got, I guess, the upgrade from that. I have the 850 and things, but the 810 sort of still has my heart. And I've thrown it downstairs and, off of stages and things like that. And it's still a beast. And I really love it as a camera. So I'd have to go with that. Yeah.
Good. Well, sometimes cameras have stories to tell as well, don't they, I think? So the final question then is, what advice would you give to an 18-year-old Jenny now? If you were starting out again, what would it be?
Don't worry so much about what other people think of you. Just definitely like give less fucks.
And if ever there were a bumper sticker worthy end to an interview, that would be it. Of course, we'll have links to Jennifer McCord, the website, on the show page at fujicast.co.uk. You can also find a link there to find out more about Sprout Studio. And as we're talking about music photography, after you've finished listening to this podcast, and if you're into your music and photography together, you'll definitely want to hear the interview on the Photography Daily podcast, available on all podcast players and online at photographydaily.show, as I talk today with Hollywood celeb A-list portrait photographer Michael Greco, who's just produced a superb, gritty coffee table book about the punk and new wave period he photographed during 13 years in New York and Boston. Find out about the book, find out about him, and find out who he's talking about here.
I photographed him, and he wouldn't stand up unless I found him some cocaine. I'd photograph him the second time in a studio, and he'd complain about the last time. And he loves to rant.
Stories of life told by photographers. It's the Photography Daily podcast, and today it's a real celebration and story of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Right, back to your questions. Are you ready for a miserable outlook one, Kev? We've had what would happen if you two carked it. So, should we follow up with this one? Luke Bailey, thanks for your mail. Bit of a miserable outlook question. Maybe an important one, all the less, though. Nonetheless, all the less. If shorter and smaller wedding days are to become the norm for the next year or two, is being a full-time, solely wedding-based photographer a viable... Don't you use that word viable. I've had enough of our Chancellor using it. Business...
Pivot.
In 2020...
Pivot and viable, they're the words I don't like.
That's it, 2020, 21. I don't like new normal either, put together with a hyphen. As you mentioned previously, we may be back to the days where 2 weddings a day becomes a thing. Although as an 80s baby, I don't have any recollection of that personally. 2020 down as the year to switch from IT to full-time photography with weddings as the foundation, but I'm having a rethink which direction to go in now. Still want to use photography as my career of choice, but maybe weddings aren't the most dependable source of revenue over portraits and family work that they once were. Is it possible that a jack-of-all-trades approach is going to be more profitable going forward? Kev.
Why me?
Well, I have a totally different outlook to you, so we're going to have 2 different answers to this.
Well, I'm not sure we have a totally different outlook. I think, there's 2 elements, isn't that right? So there are plenty of people already, even before the new normal pivot in unviable times, who were making very good money from being jacks of all trades. Yeah. Plenty of people. Yeah. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And there is a, footprint in the sand already for people who do that. For us who have been specifically wedding photographers, then I think it might be a little bit more difficult. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. I've done commercial work recently, before this lockdown, and I've taken on other bits and pieces in terms of mentoring and various bits and pieces like that, web stuff and what have you. So, you've got to do what you need to do, but I do believe that when it comes to, marketing yourself, if the long-term plan is to go back to being a wedding photographer, then I think you might do yourself a disservice if you suddenly, from an overall marketing point of view, become an all things photographer. If the long-term plan is to carry on down that route, then yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we've all got to dig holes and, throw the sand over our shoulders somehow. It's really hard because none of us know how this is going to end. And it's going to be different in different countries. We've just passed over 50,000 deaths, only the 5th country in the entire world that's gone over that.
Not good.
And, that's not a good thing. And then you look at places like Australia, New Zealand, and a lot of the Asian countries where they've dealt with it very differently and they've had different responses. And, so I think for me, putting my cards on the table, this has been a good time for me to reevaluate. And can I honestly say that in 2022, because I don't think 2021 is a year that we can kind of base this on, I will be making 80% of my income from wedding photography?
No.
Probably not.
No.
And that's going to be born from what I'm going to have to do to get through that route. And that's fine with me. As long as I can, as long as I get some flight sim tokens for Albie and some horse food for Rosa, not for her, but for a horse.
Well,
A couple of bandages for my legs and arms.
Maybe we're not so far really from each other in that respect then. But I certainly, I mean, as you know, I've been redesigning my website for now. How long? I feel like Arsenal in transition. We will be there soon. This week is the week I've put aside to finally get it done. But the website is certainly going to change. It will have a very strong wedding presence. Of course it will. But I am going to have commercial stuff on there. And I know some people say you should not have the both on the same site. But I really think it depends on how you present it. As to whether you can or whether it looks a bit... Because I know there are some commercial people that say, oh no, it looks a bit small time, don't you think? And I think that's saying more about them than it does about the people in the commercial world.
Yeah, I mean, my take, and this is, I'm pretty unwavering from a marketing point of view. This is something that I've always been told, and I've read it a billion times.
Be a specialist.
No, not so much be a specialist, but when it comes to your website and your branding, your marketing overall, the percentage of your content and your forward-placing marketing should be based on what you're doing. So let's just say 80%, you want 80% of your business to be weddings and 20% to be commercial, hypothetically. Then 80% of your website should be weddings, 20% should be commercial. 80% of your Instagram perhaps would be weddings and 20% commercial. 8 out of 10 times you answer the phone and say Neil James wedding photographer. Twice you answer it and say Neil James commercial photographer. So you get the idea. And that's a long-standing marketing paradigm from way before the internet came along, way before COVID came along. And that's something that I firmly believe in. I do think that if you're shooting, if you still want to get a majority of work from weddings and you have 50% on your website, then for a start, Google's going to start getting mixed messages, and you're basically saying to Google, I don't know, I want you to rank me for both, and it'll just go, okay, we will, but we'll rank you for both a little bit lower than we would have ranked one higher. So there's all that going on. But the actual fact is, you can only do so much work, right? And the royal you, that is. And it's got to be, there's that terrible term, isn't there? Throw as much mud at the wall and see what sticks. I don't think you can do that in public. I don't think you can just stick a tab on your website and say, I'm a baby photographer and here's a picture of a baby. Because you're not. That you're not. You're somebody who's built a page on your website that says you're a baby photographer.
Yeah, I think it needs to show a cohesive body of work.
Yeah.
And it can't be just a couple of images, like horses, dogs, cats, baby photography, boudoir, weddings.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. And that's where we're at. We all need to pivot.
Yeah, but not pivot that much.
No, exactly. But be careful how you pivot, because you might fall down the stairs like me.
And like Kev, you can also offer pictures of Doggersfield.
Yeah.
Right.
What is it? Is it Dogmersfield?
Dogmersfield, yeah. God, Kev. Right. Kids are now going, what does he mean, Mum? What's he laughing at? Never mind, it's okay.
Yeah.
What
are you on about, by the way?
I don't. Moving on. Let's look at Kev's book of the week. What a good time to change tack.
Yeah. Okay. Now I need to put my straight face on, because this is an important body of work.
Right.
So this is the book I have this week is called Hidden Lens by Emmy Andreas.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's beautiful. Another black and white hardback book. It's kind of edited by somebody called Louise Bearing. It's available on Amazon, usual kind of thing, about £25 or so. Now, I've had this book. I bought this book several years ago, and I've looked at it several times, but I've never really looked into the background of the photographer, interestingly. And there's a little bit on the back cover, on the inside cover of the book, that says, though she survived the war, Andreas feared she would die before she reached 40, like her own mother.
Wow.
It was this premonition that in part fueled her eagerness for living, an eagerness for photography, seeing, experiencing, suffering and enjoying. Now, the premonition was true, because she actually died at the age of 39 from cancer.
That's terrible.
So she was a photographer and she's a Dutch photographer, and throughout the World War II, And the book itself is kind of a combination of work, beautiful portraits, just flip in there again. It's difficult because you're not here, so I can't show you the pictures. No. For example, on page 78, it's one of those lovely books where you have the page on the right-hand side is the image, and then the simple description is on the left. I love that. Yeah. Mother and Children, Hunger, Winter, Amsterdam, 1944 to 45. Very poignant work, because a lot of this stuff was, of course, during the time of the
occupation, wasn't it? Occupation.
Holocaust, occupation, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a it's all in English, even though she's Dutch, and there's a lot of Dutch connotations in there in terms of, you know, how she lived her life. And the book, I suppose the text is written by Louise Bowring, like it says, but the images are really, they're your everyday things that, like we keep saying, this idea of just taking pictures of everyday stuff, you know. So for example, there's a picture on page 159 of a kosher butcher, Rue de Rossière in the Marais, Paris, circa 1950. And for all intents and purposes, in those days, this was just a kosher butcher. But, you know, so it's a picture of this butcher shop. Now, it's in a book now, you know, all this time later, it's in an exhibition because it's nostalgic. You know, in those days, people would walk past this window every day of the week. And
it also took on a different connotation being during the occupation.
Absolutely, of course, yeah. Well, I mean, this is 1950. That picture was taken, but the principle of the book is that era. But it's interesting what she said in the back. You know, as I just said it, her eagerness for seeing, experiencing, suffering, and enjoying. And you know that I think is summed up in the pictures. You get this very melancholic work, I think. But seeing and experiencing, you know, how many times have we talked about this idea of a photographer is just, you know, the thing that being a photographer is the technique. It's what you see really is the talent, I think. And that comes out well in this book. So Emmy Andreas, Hidden Lens. I will, of course, link to it on the much ignored FujiCast.
It's not so ignored now. Website. I think every time you say that, more people go to it, don't they?
Yes. Well, I will keep saying it.
Okay.
And so I will put the link to it there, of course. And enjoy. It's a really nice book.
I always remember my Uncle Jan. I don't think he was a real uncle. You know how you have real and not real uncles. And
what was his name? Jan?
Jan, yes, Jan. He was Dutch. And my mum's best friend at school, who was Daphne, married Jan. And we used to have family holidays with him. Do you remember holidays when we used to go away and do stuff? Do you remember those, Kev?
Vaguely.
Holiday. And we went on this holiday to Newquay, and we two families had this house. We had a nice sort of cottage overlooking the bay. It was beautiful. But Jan had grown up during the occupation, and he had some very firm ideas about food, because food shortages, and I mean, that was very much on the minds of all those that lived in those occupied countries. You didn't waste food at all. And I remember leaving a boiled egg. Isn't it weird? This is very young memory. A boiled egg and soldiers. It was a very British thing. If you've an American thing, what's it called? Boiled egg and soldiers. Basically a boiled egg, and then you cut your toast into long lengths, don't you? And you dip it in.
Yeah.
Dippy egg. And I left, I think, half my egg or something. He went absolutely loopy. And tore me off. It was a real family problem, actually, because my mum and dad couldn't quite understand why this Uncle Jan was having such a go at me, until it was explained afterwards that, you know, he never... I tell you what, Uncle Jan's plate, you could eat off that plate again without having to wash it, even if it had gravy.
Yeah. So, no, I think that's right. My nana was similar. You know, I remember vividly going to Marks and Spencer's. This would have been in the mid-'80s, and go to the cafe, which was very posh for Newport to have a cafe in a shop, and wouldn't buy anything in the cafe. She'd pull out her fat sandwiches, and I'm not joking. Sandwiches made out with fat in the middle.
Oh, actual fat?
Yeah,
no,
that was the filling.
Really?
Yep.
That can't be very good for you. She lived to 95.
She did live a long life, yeah. Bless her. Keep pushing, she used to say.
Yeah, I'm sure she did. Right, Jeremy Baker, portrait tips, please. How do you, or what do you do to focus if you're wearing spectacles, especially if you're shooting wide open, aperture-wise? Now, I don't wear spectacles when I shoot, Jeremy, so I don't know, really, and I don't think you do either, do you, Kev? But it is your question.
Is he on about the photographer wearing spectacles or the subject wearing spectacles?
No, I think the photographer, the photographer wearing spectacles.
Oh, right.
Shouldn't be too much of an issue, should it? I mean, Well, you get one of those rubber eye cup things, isn't it? Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I don't wear spectacles and I don't really take portraits.
I'm going to put you in the
Other than that.
must get big rubber eye cup pile, which is a brand new pile just down there. But before your question,
you see lots of pictures of photographers though with their specs up.
Yeah.
On those. Didn't Platon when we discussed that Netflix documentary about Platon? I'm sure he was wearing specs and he would always have his specs up on his head. When he was taking his pictures, and then we'd flop them down.
Yeah, I think
when
you're right.
He was reviewing, I'm sure.
I think you're right. Yeah. So it's doable. Indie layman Thomas Heaton did a review of the video capabilities of his XT4 on September 27. I did watch the film. Are his comments a fair assessment of the camera's video capabilities? He wasn't tremendously enamoured with it, was he?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the video, so I really don't know. All I know is that. And I don't even have an XT4, so I can't actually say yes, it's good or no, it's not. But I have seen stuff from people using XT4, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
so
it is. Yeah,
it certainly is capable of being phenomenal.
I can't wait to get my hand on that camera when I'm working again. This was going to be the year XT3 to XT4. This was the year. But it's not happened. It's going to have to be 2024. Go on then, Kev. I think we've got time for one more question.
Okay, this is from Mark Dell, and he says, "Good morning, chaps. Yada yada yada. I was watching some videos on the Great Time Waster YouTube."
Time waster.
About it's another iPhone question. See, we prepared this perfectly well about the new iPhone 12 Pro. Obviously, Apple have worked wonders with the new camera on its latest phone. Would it work in cameras too? This is a little twist on that previous question. AI working on the image through a setting that is kind of like presets. Is this sacrilege to suggest it? I honestly think that if Fuji did this, they would steal a march on all the manufacturers and perhaps gather a younger audience and fan base. So he's talking about having processing, the AI stuff going on in the camera.
Right, yeah.
And there is actually a camera already, I think. I want to say Panasonic, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's one that it has basically a cut down version of Lightroom built into the LCD on the back.
No way.
It's got Android on the camera.
Wow.
So yeah, you know what, Mark? I think that's the way we'll ultimately end up going. I have to say it. The camera's being more. Not so much on the processing and editing side of things. I think that's something slightly different, but certainly more along the lines of doing things that phones can do. Like, again, we've spoke about it before, but when 5G hits, I'd love to see cameras with 5G cards, slots, and, take the picture, it's in your Dropbox. Take the picture, it's in your Dropbox.
Yeah.
That excites me, that kind of thing, from a technological point of view.
Yeah.
But yes, I think there's a merging of technologies going on.
What about you'd need to be able to play your chess game on your phone, not your phone, on your camera.
That would be perfect.
Imagine that.
If I could play my chess game on the back of my iPro 17,
yes.
Then I would go back to my Nokia 3210.
There we go.
Should still have somewhere.
Do you really still have that one? And that's it for another week. If you've liked this week's shows, then and if you think it's relevant, then please make an effort to go and leave a review on one of the review sites. That'd be fantastic. If you can share the episode on Twitter or Facebook, you are a star. See you in the Facebook group for any questions you have about today's show. Play nice, of course. Our moderators, Steve and Peter, they're in there keeping a beady eye out. Still they are, And of course, I think we're running a bit low on the questions now, aren't we, Kev? Every so often, every sort of 4 months or so, we have to remind you to send some questions in. Because otherwise it's going to be a very quiet show, isn't it?
Yeah, and also don't forget, if you want to send in if you don't want to tell us your name, then you can use the contact form on the FujiCast website.
Oh yeah,
and just say don't put your name on it.
or make up a name.
Yeah, or make up a name.
Yeah. Kevin Mullins.
Yeah. Daphne Yarn.
Yeah, Auntie Daphne and Uncle Yarn. Send them to, or you can send them to the old-fashioned way, which is click@fujicast.co.uk. Thank you to those who are supporting the show by Patreon. You are absolute stars. And as Kev said earlier, we can bump you to the front with your questions. Music is from Blue Wednesday. We're supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. Now, earlier on we were saying you could watch rugby this weekend. Of course, we sometimes forget that we record it on the Friday or the Thursday or something. It goes out on the Monday. It would have been the
5 weeks of rugby ahead of us.
It would have been the rugby. Was it 5 weeks of it?
Yeah.
You cannot possibly stretch out your injuries for 5 weeks, or can you, Kev?
And also, it's all on Amazon Prime, which is, I don't have Sky, but I've got Amazon Prime, so I can deal with it.
So your next 5 weeks, that's lockdown sorted for you.
Yeah, it's going to be Christmas.
It's early Christmas for Kev. Don't you dare use the C word. Right, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.